Join us, Alex
and Colleen,
self-proclaimed fake it till you make it experts as we navigate the highs and lows of being a woman and how the pressure and overwhelm of trying to do it all often leads to feeling like an imposter in our own lives. Today's guest, Thanh from Love and Sundays, opens up about the influence of her first-generation Canadian identity on her career aspirations, motherhood, and the unexpected shifts in her professional life.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Colleen.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
You know what? I'm actually starting to enjoy the little bit of crispness coming into the air.
Well, I'm glad one of us is.
I know you love summer.
I do.
And I love fall.
I know. I don't know how we're friends.
I don't either. Well, there's all the other stuff we have in common, but I love wearing sweaters.
I also love wearing sweaters, but I wear them all summer too.
You do. You do, which it always is shocking to me when you show up and you're in a sweater and a tank
freezing.
top. But for me, I'm always in, because I'm always hot and going to have a hot flash. So this is now the season for me. I'm heading into sweater weather.
Yeah.
You're heading into toque weather.
Yes, I am. Yeah, just waiting until it's like society. It's appropriate for me to wear toques.
You've done some fashion challenges this year.
Yeah,
with Alicia Sims.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in
How'd
one
that
right
go?
now. Good. I mean, I'm not doing today. It's animal print, which I'm not doing right now.
There's no.
I have like 2 pieces of animal print, and I already wore them both. And I bought them last week because I had none.
That is a challenge for you.
It is a challenge.
You do love fashion though. So do you like when the seasons change?
I do. I like to mix it up a little bit. But because I wear sweaters all year round, it's not that different. But yeah, I like it when new trends come out and new color palettes and layering and scarves and hats and all the accessories of fall. I just don't like to wear socks.
Oh, I don't like wearing socks either. Although you've been pulling off the socks with the sandals this summer.
Yeah, because I think I'm 20.
And speaking of fashion, we have Thanh from Love and Sundays with us. And Thanh is always fashionable.
Oh, I thank you.
You're welcome. I love seeing, posts of you standing in front of your mirror, putting your clothes on for the day. And the girls too are like always so fashionable.
I think Aria has the fashion bug for sure.
Do you?
Yeah, she just walks to the beat of her own drum, as they say.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's so great. What's your favorite fall fashion thing right now, do you think?
Right now, I'm super into the denim on denim look.
Yes.
I mean, it was a big thing when I was in high school, and now I'm like just reliving all the glory days of my high school outfits, but like a little bit better, a little bit more age appropriate. The suede's coming back, all the studs, and like the statement jewelry that don't make sense.
I love it. All the 90s stuff
I
is
love
like
it.
so prominent.
You know what?
Right?
But I do have some regrets. I regret giving things away. I had a lot of animal print.
See, I could have borrowed
Alex
it all
could
this
have used
week.
it all this week. That's right.
Yeah.
You had a lot of animal print. Now it's all just gone.
Yeah. Well, actually, it might not be gone. I do have a deep storage situation that I probably could find my satin leopard print skirt from back in the day. But, I haven't dug around yet.
There you
Stay
go.
tuned.
Stay tuned. That's right. We'll be watching. Tell us a little bit about your career path.
My career path is interesting. I'm a pharmacist, and that's what I knew from I think grade 8 that I was going to be a pharmacist. And I think also growing up in an Asian immigrant household, it was like you had 5 options. You're a pharmacist, doctor, lawyer, maybe a nurse, teacher, I don't know. But those were the options, and I chose pharmacy. And I went through school, graduated. I worked for several years, started my family, and when I was postpartum with my first, that's when I decided I needed to be a little bit more than this mom that wakes up in the dark and is stuck in her home. And that's where I reached out into the World Wide Web, as they say, and started blogging and kind of sharing my experience. And at that time, that's when Instagram started to kind of come on, and I kind of hopped on, and it was a really cool way to kind of connect with a lot of people. And I started content creating on the side, working pharmacy full time. And then by the time I had my second, I was on mat leave. I decided, let's just see where this goes.
And you've kind of been phasing out of the pharmacy and leaning a lot more into content creation since, really.
Yeah. Like I kind of made that really tough decision of taking off that pharmacy hat, kind of something that I've identified with for, I feel like, a million years. And I felt a little lost, and I felt really scared, thinking like, okay, how am I going to tell my parents? I am going through school, I did all this stuff, I was doing the thing, and then now I'm not doing it anymore to do something very unknown and unconventional, I think, in most people's eyes. But at that time, I was very family focused. Still am, obviously, but I really was just looking at my work schedule with pharmacy, and it just wasn't jiving with how I wanted my family life to be. I grew up in a household where my parents, had to work 3 jobs, 2 jobs each sometimes, and they weren't there. Not that they didn't want to be, but we were just, we were not thriving. We were surviving, and I wanted something a little different for my kids. And I really was lucky enough that I'd built my content creation hobby, quote unquote hobby, into something that I could see sustain an income. So
I mean, you've done really well with it, and it has to be very different, though. Like you said, your identity was very much would have been ingrained with this scientific type of career and education, to switch to a creative type of world that had to really blow your identity up, but also the kind of the expectations of the people around you, what they thought of who you were and stuff.
Yeah.
How like that had to bring in a lot of imposter syndrome for you.
100%. I felt like, I don't know, there was a layer of I was almost embarrassed because the term content creator wasn't a thing 5 years ago. 8 years ago when I started, it was you're an influencer. And that time, and being an influencer was literally just...
Well, there's such a negative connotation to it, right?
Look at this lip gloss I just got.
Right? Yeah.
And then, when I would go to events with my husband or out and people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm a pharmacist, but I also do digital marketing, and I would never say the word influencer because I felt embarrassed.
Yes.
And I don't know, I don't know why. I think society had made me feel like it wasn't a cool thing, or not cool, but
there was
a real job.
It was a lesser than there was a stigma.
It wasn't a real job.
Yeah.
It was just me sitting in front of my phone or something.
Yeah. And I remember when I started with the blogging and this whole idea of being a mom blogger.
Yeah.
And it was this negative connotation
Everyone's
around it.
a mom blogger.
Everybody
in
and
their
then we changed the wording to, okay, let's influencer. And then it was no, digital creator, no, content creator. We've never been able to, the second you fall on a term that seems to work,
somebody puts it
down, and then everybody's searching for the new word again, and yet we can never quite get comfortable with the fact that being a content creator, a digital marketer, is a lot of work. It takes a lot of talent.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that you just sit down and just start speaking and that's it. And I think there's so much more to it that no one sees. So I think it is unfortunate that stigma exists.
Yeah, it takes a lot of planning, a lot of time. And I think a lot of time as a viewer, you don't realize that the ad that you're seeing wasn't just filmed that morning and posted on an hour later. It was a negotiated contract that happened 4 months ago, with a brief and 1 to 2 conference calls and shooting, editing, revising, and then you have to wait for approvals and then post. So there's a lot of planning and a lot of coordinating that goes into, campaigns and digital ads and assets that the brands use. And it could be also maybe a fault in our the creator side for not being more open about showing all the behind the scenes and really being, upfront with how much work it takes.
Yeah, because we really, the brand just wants you to show the end result.
Of
Like,
course.
look
Because
at
that's what
this-
people are looking
that's
for.
what
That
people are looking
15
for, that-
second of visual stimulation,
Right.
like dopamine rush of like, oh, is that new? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's happening? Is it that this weekend? That's all they care about. And that's fair. That's the world of marketing. And that is, you're looking to sell something in that 15 seconds of attention of the viewer, right?
Are you still triggered a bit with the difference between, hey, I'm no longer a pharmacist?
Oh, you know what? It's getting a little bit easier for me to be like, no, I'm actually, because I was, I stopped doing pharmacy full time, but then I started to take contract shifts here and there just to, keep up to date with things. And I quickly realized that I was like, yeah, I left community pharmacy for a good reason. It just wasn't giving me joy anymore. It was like more stressful. Like I felt like I was like, okay, do I have to study or something before I take my shift? Like, do I know it? Like I had to have that confidence in myself. And I really leaned into just really kind of cherry picking what kind of shifts and like what I would be doing. And I really enjoyed that. But it kind of got so busy on the content side that like if someone calls me for a shift, can you work tomorrow? I'm like, I can't. Or my husband's away, or like I am out of town to shoot, or so it kind of just kept phasing, and I was saying no more than yes for my shifts. So
Yeah.
I was just like, this doesn't make any sense anymore.
And now I'm a content creator. Yeah, you could say, yeah.
Yeah, now
Wow.
I just I create content. People are like, what do you mean? Usually, when someone asks like, what do you do? I was like, yeah, I create digital assets for brands. Some of which I post myself, but some they just use as like on the brand end, and they're like, oh, okay. And you can tell they still don't get it, but I just usually end the conversation there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have time.
I don't have time. I'm not explaining this to you.
Yeah.
Looking to relax and rejuvenate? Treat yourself at Bello Day Spa. Located in the heart of Bedford West, from luxurious facials and brow services to soothing massages, waxing, and perfect manis, pedis, their team has you covered. Bello Day Spa isn't just a place for pampering. Their friendly staff will help you find the perfect skincare products from their wide selection of premium lines. Ready to refresh your routine? Book your appointment today and discover why Bello Day Spa is your neighborhood go-to spot for relaxation and self-care. Bello Day Spa, your local relaxation retreat. You've got two little girls.
I do.
Yes, you grew up in Yarmouth.
I did.
As did
As did
Alice.
Whitetown. The Red Knight.
That's right. Oh my God. I spent a lot of nights I don't remember there.
And you married your high school sweetheart.
Yeah, from Iceland.
From Iceland.
He's from Iceland, yeah.
Which I think it's probably my favorite content of yours is when you guys travel to Iceland.
Yeah.
And in fact, not that Jan was in it, but this year you had a post go quite viral.
Yeah, it's still going.
It's going nuts
actually.
right now, isn't it?
And it's mind blowing because I'm like, wow, my entire content creation life, I was like, I wish I could go viral. Like I see lots of videos go viral, and I'm like, this is the video that goes viral of me just doing like 3 circles.
Right? You guys are jumping on the bed or something.
Well,
aren't
she's
you?
she's on the bed. Like my best friend is on the bed, and when the sound clip hits, like I'm just like turning around in a circle, and she's like waving back and forth, and that's it for like seconds.
I think it's so funny because you went away you were there for your 10th anniversary, and then you made what was the post said something about when your friend.
It's I think what's the hook is that it says like point of view, you celebrate your 10-year friendiversary harder than your 10-year wedding anniversary.
That's right.
And it's been shared like a bazillion times. So
Crack me
like
up.
girlfriends are just sending it back and forth to each other.
So
Right?
relatable.
Yeah.
Before we talk about more of your family life, I do want to touch on the girlfriend thing for a bit because I don't know how many years ago I met you now.
Oh God.
Maybe 9, 8, 9, 10.
It's got to be like close to a decade ago.
Yeah, a decade maybe. And I knew very, very quickly that you're a girl's girl.
Yeah.
You support your girlfriends. You support women. You are all about the values and morals and the girls' code, and you got people's back.
Yeah.
And you've had my back for many, many years. Thank you.
And you having mine
And
as
I've had
well.
your
Yeah.
back. But you're a real girls girl. Who are your hype girls? Because I know that you're there for women. You're there to support women and you're there to lift women up. Who's there for you?
For me personally, I have just a few friends I can count on one hand, and they're the ones that I go to kind of like ground me, and they're the first people that I share news with, and they're my biggest cheerleaders. Like, they're my best friends, and like Krista being one of them, my friend Siobhan that I went traveling with, and like a few others. They're just friends that like give to me as much as I give to them, you know? And like, that's something about my personality I've learned in therapy in my older age, is that I am the initiator. I am the planner. I am I gather people, I gather things, but that's part of like, you know, whatever trauma I had in my childhood, where if I didn't do it, it doesn't get done. Mm-hmm. So it's been such a nice moment for me in this stage of my life to look around at the people around me and see that there are more people that give to me than I give to them, where, you know, 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. 5 years ago, maybe that wasn't the case either. So I think having like people that really have your back, whether it's an acquaintance or a coworker, a family member, whoever it is, but to just take note of who in your life gives you the same amount of energy and time and like respect that you give out all the time. Those are the people that you need to just like hold on to for dear life.
I agree.
That's true.
We talk about making sure that you're surrounded by the right group of people that lift you up instead of pull you down.
Yeah.
We have enough going on in our lives that pull us down. So it's really it's integral. It's so important in your life to have those people that pull you up.
Well, and often it takes time in your life to realize who the right people are and who the wrong people are. Mm-hmm. I know that in the last probably 10 years for me, I've cleaned up my friend group a lot.
Cleaned up?
That sounds horrible.
Took a broom to it.
But made some strategic choices about who was going to be in my circle versus who I may have let in previously to that. And I think that just takes some reflection. So I think it's, important to do that.
Alex is, actually by the time this airs, it might have already happened. I'm not sure. But Alex is doing a presentation at Speak Up.
Yes.
And it's about your personal branding, but a lot of it is on your own personal values, knowing who you are, figuring out who you are.
Yeah.
And
because I think, especially in middle age, which is where I think I am, you kind of almost wake up one day and be like, who even am I now? Like I've worked all this time getting my career solidified, my family, my home, and now I have a little bit of time to think about myself, and I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what matters to me. I have relationships that aren't aligned, and sort of kind of figuring out what those parameters are. And it is a personal brand to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily for business. It's just for living and being able to feel confident with parameters that matter to you.
Yeah, that didn't really happen for me until the last kid moved out. And the last kid moved out just as the pandemic began.
Okay, yeah.
And
I remember this.
Remember that? And all of a sudden it was like, who am I? And I remember that year, I wrote a blog post that year saying that I was going to go on, it was 2020. So I was going to do 20 adventures in 2020 and I was going to start online dating.
How'd that go?
She set off a global pandemic.
Set off a pandemic. That's right. And then I really, I was at home for a couple of years, very lonely on my own. And it's a time when you're supposed to try to figure out who you are again. My whole identity was gone. My whole identity of being this mom. And I haven't quite even got it figured out yet, And I think
that's okay.
And it is okay. It's okay to be a little bit lost out there and find your way.
It's evolving.
It's always evolving. And I feel like I went through this shift when I started my family and having a baby. I remember being in the depths of postpartum and thinking to myself, I wasn't going to work anymore. I was still healing. I couldn't even walk right. I wasn't leaving the house. I was like, who? what's happening? Like who I thought I was before kids was not who I was in that moment. And I had a moment of like trying to figure out who I was. I had the same conversation with myself when I was like, am I a pharmacist, or am I going to be am I still a pharmacist? And I feel like I'm going to have that conversation with myself probably again in a few years. Like, who knows?
Yeah. And I think those are conversations we should be having with ourselves.
We got to check in with ourselves.
Priorities change and lifestyle changes, and you change. You know, hormones change.
Hormones. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we already had that one. The one before.
We had a whole session with Shayna Falcone, and we were talking about perimenopause and menopause. And boy, does that mess.
Yeah,
you in that club?
I'm in that club.
It's not a fun club.
Oh, no, it is a terrible club to be a member of.
It is, because none of us had any idea what was coming at us. None of us.
So that's why I think it's important to have those kind of check-ins with ourselves and figure out what it is that does matter, because you can get pretty lost and your self-esteem can really take a plummet if you're not living the way that you want to be living or that feels good for you.
Yeah.
And I think we can get caught up in like sort of pleasing everybody else, and then there's not much left for us.
There's nothing left, really, a lot of times. And you wake up.
I was saying to a girlfriend the other day, I was like, I'm in my selfish era. And this came up again during therapy. I keep bringing up therapy. And I think
we're therapy advocates.
I think everybody should be in therapy for a whole bunch of reasons. But for me, I realize that I am always trying to like make sure everybody else is okay, happy, are they having the experiences, like always, all the time, to the point where like then I get lost. I don't get those experiences for myself in an authentic way. So I was saying to a girlfriend, I was like, I feel like I've slowly entered my selfish era in the last year. And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm not feeling bad if I haven't talked to a girlfriend in a couple months because I didn't reach out. And I'm just like, it's okay.
One of the ways to combat imposter syndrome is to actually listen to how awesome the people in your life think you are. If you're looking for the perfect gift for a loved one, where you can tell them all of the things that make them special, visit my Drawbridge Creative Etsy shop and purchase a Things We Love About You custom poster. With several styles to choose from, it's a fabulous gift for any milestone birthday, anniversary, retirement, or just because.
Yeah, I love that.
They could reach out to me. Or like I don't have to go to everything that, my family plans or wants to do. Like I can say no. I'm like, no, like I want to spend time with my family, like my immediate family. Or no, that doesn't work for me. I don't want to travel right now. But previously I would be, okay, I'll make it work.
Yeah.
You want to go next weekend? Sure. And I'm like, oh God, how am I going to make this? And then I take on all that background stress.
Yeah, and at the detriment
of myself.
To your anxiety, to your stress, to your mental health, and then you end up that's how we end up falling into these depressions of
and so much resentment builds up too when you do those things.
You're right. It is a lot of resentment.
And your cortisol just goes through the roof, and you get adrenal fatigue, and then your adrenal glands have no idea when it should be pumping out cortisol, because you need cortisol in your body to do all your metabolic processes. Okay? Yeah. Cortisol isn't a bad thing. It's the balance of your cortisol that is usually gone completely wonky, and then that affects the rest of your hormones. Yeah. So
and then we wonder why
I'll
we're
take that hat off.
Right? But then we wonder why we're stressed out and hitting, what do you call it? It's not like we're not balanced. We're not.
Yeah,
we don't have a balance. The burnout. Thank you. I was looking for the word. I knew there was a B word I was thinking.
Like in my professional life, especially with digital like this about me. I've said more like no's to things in my creative career than I've said yes. I just have never taken that mindset into my personal life until recently in the last year, where I'm like, no, I'm good.
It's so freeing.
No hard feelings though. I just don't want to go, or I don't feel like going to eat there because I want to go out to where I want to eat. But that's okay. You can go. Like,
right?
Yeah. So
imagine that you're allowed to have your own opinions.
Yeah.
Why? What? there are so many
people pleasing.
People pleasing, right? There are so many
100%.
root causes to imposter syndrome. Where do you think some of yours comes from?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question.
I know.
I think a lot of it comes from just my life experiences, mainly like growing up in a very rural town, being the only like non-white kid for a few years in many different areas of my life. Always being asked if I spoke English. Like there's just like, okay, I came here when I was 5, so I can speak English okay. And, you know, I identify more of like a North American, like culture-wise and like how I feel and think and my opinions, not necessarily like Vietnamese. And then when I go back to Vietnam or in the past, I have an accent when I speak Vietnamese, and it just, you know, I'm not quite there. I don't know. Like, I think all my life I've kind of just felt like in the middle of identities.
Interesting, because being a minority is one of the root causes.
Yeah, I think
imposter
so.
syndrome.
And like, I feel like I'm always a little aware of like who's around me, where I am. And yeah, maybe this is a therapy session. I can't
Yeah,
tell.
it is. It's always a therapy session. Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
you know, I think being like looking different back in, you know, when I was growing up, it definitely played a part in how I made decisions and like how I felt about things that I did. And even today, like sometimes I go to events and I'm like, wow, I'm the only person that is not white here.
Yeah.
Staff, attendees, things like that. And then I'm just like, you know, and for a second you're like, oh, okay.
And it should never
Yeah.
be. Like, to
It
me,
shouldn't.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't
It
be.
shouldn't be. I mean, I can definitely attest to Yarmouth being
It's gotten a lot
very
better.
white when we were
When
young.
we were,
yeah.
when like 30 years ago,
Yeah.
you know, 20
and
years
very
ago.
close-minded.
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
So your family arrived here from Vietnam. You were 5? Did you
Yeah,
say
so
that?
my dad came first. So he came 5 years earlier than my mom. So basically, I was born. He counted my fingers, my toes, gave us all a kiss, and you know,
Really?
set off to try to make it make a better life for us. And he landed in Canada, and he started establishing his life and getting a job, his education, and then sponsoring my mother and I to come over. And I was like 5.5, I'd say, when I landed in Canada. And this is where I've been ever since.
Wow.
I know. And it's wild to me that then I married someone who is also not Canadian. And I spend like a lot of my adult life just not really.
Do you think you connected because you both?
No.
No.
There was-
Okay, that's
no,
not at all. No.
Not at all.
No.
I don't think there was that much of a sophisticated mindset back then.
You just connected, and that's that.
I was like, yeah, he's pretty cute. No, he's kind of funny. And that's about it.
And you've been together ever since.
Yeah, 21 years in January.
Yeah.
We've been married for 10 years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I deserve a
loved-
medal.
You do deserve
Yeah,
a medal.
that is
yeah.
impressive in this day and
Maybe
age.
he deserves a medal too.
Well, maybe,
Putting up with
but
me,
let's
who knows?
give you the medal.
Yeah.
I do like that when you guys were in Iceland, you
Yeah.
went salmon fishing.
Yeah, so salmon fishing is a really big part of his family's lifestyle. I mean, it's like memories that. So we go salmon fishing up north, which is where he's from in Iceland, and so we get to fish the same rivers and that he did when he was like 3, 4, or 5, like growing up. And it's kind of cool because actually this trip home, his dad dug up old videos of Jan and his siblings fishing in the same spot that like we were fishing in. You could see, you can recognize it, like everything kind of looks the same, but you know, Jan's like 3 he's just like holding
sweet.
a rod. And then I'm just like, this is really cool to have that sense of like family connection and time for my kids as well, because they were there.
Yeah.
Like we have footage of them fishing on those banks. And I think that's something that's super special for us.
Family is big for you.
It is. It really is. Like whether it's my immediate family or my extended family, it's a big part of who I am. And growing up in this is the Vietnamese part of me. It's like Vietnamese culture, Asian culture is very family focused, not self focused. You do things for your family, but that's also causing a lot of trauma for a lot of us.
Sure.
And probably a root cause of a lot of my people pleasing and, you know, maybe putting others before me. But that's the mindset, is that you do things for your family. If it doesn't advance your family, you should reconsider your decision, you know? But yeah, family is really big for me. And that's probably part of the reason, like I kind of always think about my family and how what I say, what I do may affect them or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, family's big for me too. I think but to me, it's, you know, I've got a lot of cousins, but it's my mom and dad. You know, I'm doing an awful lot for them at the moment as they age. But my kids, I just, you know, I worship those kids, you know.
Yeah.
And I watch you with your kids and you with your, like, we're, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty special times.
It's pretty wild that like we made children, like we made humans. Like,
Let us do that.
Like that's weird, you know?
All the time. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Like, why are you looking? Like you just did what I did.
Yeah.
Your girls do.
Oh.
Your girls have a lot of your facial expressions. It's funny.
So we were in Iceland and the volcano erupted
Yes.
the day before we left, and I actually have a hilarious clip of Aria because she's holding her like tablet. And, like, she's, like, giving a peace sign with the volcano.
She's not.
She's like, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, just taking a picture, Mom.
But she sees you doing that, right?
No. And then I'm like, oh, God, I got to stop with the peace signs.
We can't. Well, I mean,
It's like
I'm a
natural.
geriatric millennial.
I'm like,
you're like
woo!
millennial thing, right? I do
Right?
it too.
I'm going to do it forever.
Yeah.
That'll be my thing.
It'll be your thing. Types of imposter syndrome. You've described yourself as a perfectionist, a superhuman, and an expert. So you're all the things.
Oh, God.
But
I'm a blend of those. I wouldn't say I hit all of, like, as when I read through the description, I'm like, oh, wow. And then I was like, oh, God. And I kept highlighting them. Like, I got to stop.
do you? But we've mentioned therapy. You know, we're all big into therapy. Does some of this stuff come up into therapy?
100%.
Yeah. Because imposter syndrome is not a mental health thing, but
it's a
certainly
feeling.
I think it's a off-brand. I don't know. It's a sub-brand.
Sub-brand?
Sub-brand. To talk in marketing terms. It is a sub-brand of other things that happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get these aspects of your personality based on something that's happened to you or how you were brought up or like your parents' communication style, your communication style, like in your childhood.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So these things come up now in adulthood when big decisions come up because of, you know, trauma or past experiences that we experienced when we're children and young adults trying to form these ideals about ourselves and also the people around us.
Yeah.
And I think it's so wonderful that we're exploring some of these things and some of these past traumas, because there's no way to break the cycle of some of that generational stuff unless we talk about it and try and change it for our own children and try to change it moving forward.
Yeah.
I think all that has to be talked about. All of this imposter syndrome stuff, this feeling of not feeling worthy enough or feeling like you're faking it or not being good enough or not, we have to talk about this. You know, we truly believe that we need to talk about this stuff.
But because you can't change something if you're not aware of it, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what you're saying is like, for me personally, communication has been one of the biggest things that I try to do with my kids. And probably a lot of that stems from what you said. Like, I just didn't have that with my parents for a whole bunch of different reasons. You know, they didn't have that with their parents.
Yeah.
You know, so how, like, it's hard because, like, especially with my parents, they left when their families, when they were quite young to just come over here. So it's not like
they didn't have those supports either.
And they didn't have that continued learning with their parents.
So true.
To improve anything. Like, and I'm blessed with that opportunity now to be able to try to work a little harder at communicating differently, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because I immediately get triggered and fall back into some of my old thought patterns, and I'm like, okay, like I got to step back.
I know. And we're not getting it right either. I think we're all like,
We're just doing it a little
trying
bit
really
better.
hard.
Yeah.
We're doing it better. But, it'll be very interesting when our kids are all older and mine are older, what they come back and say we did wrong.
Nobody's
Like,
getting out
No,
unscathed.
we're not
Like,
getting
it's
out
not
unscathed,
bad.
right?
Of course not.
There's just more language now too. There wasn't the language didn't exist when
That's so true.
when our parents were parenting. It wasn't talked about. You weren't supposed to talk about it. You just
did it.
You just did it. And so no shade to my parents.
Or mine.
Or mine.
They did the best they could
Yeah.
with what they had.
Yeah.
And that's all that I could have asked for.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah. Fantastic, even. Serving up hot brews, refreshing cold drinks, lots of fresh baked goodies, and delicious lunch options. Visit the Mellow Mug in the heart of Larry Utech for dine-in, takeout, or drive-through service. Their spacious cafe offers a casual and inviting vibe that's perfect for everything from enjoying a good book, hanging with friends, or meeting a colleague. The Mellow Mug is your neighborhood spot for great coffee and delicious eats and sweets. Growing up in Yarmouth, in a minority household, your dad, your mom, big expectations on you?
Yeah, being the oldest.
The oldest.
The oldest in an Asian household there's so many TikToks going around, now it's quite funny, people poking fun of it. And it's funny because it's all true, the things they bring up. But yeah, like you kind of have this invisible load of you got to get it right. You got to set the example. And I had an extra layer in the fact that like we were first generation immigrants, and I did a lot of the translating and paper filling out, and because it's just faster for me to do it than my parents. It was easier. So I kind of took on a little bit of executive roles, I guess, in that area. And that felt like a little bit less. Sometimes I always describe, like, I feel like I didn't really have a childhood because right out of the get-go, there was always like so much responsibility. Like I was watching my siblings the moment I was legally allowed to, and cooking, and because my parents had to go to one of their jobs and work, and we were just all in survival mode. So sometimes I look back, and there's a funny TikTok, actually, I'm going to refer to it, where this woman is saying, like, don't give your the oldest child grace, because just because she's bougie or whatever, it's because of this, and I'm like, oh my God. And I had a couple of friends send it to me, and it's hilarious because I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I can be bougie sometimes. I didn't have any of that. I didn't get to play sports because we couldn't afford it, or there's like some cultural thing about girls not being able to do whatever, So I was like, yeah, if I want that purse and I worked, I'm gonna go get it. Like, give your bougie older sibling a break,
I love that.
They were the ones filling out the paperwork, and you're like doing all these things that you didn't do. So just give us a break.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you really had to grow up so young. It does add another layer on top.
It's just different, Like, I just have a very different experience. And sometimes when my siblings and I are chatting, or we're remembering things, like my brother was just up visiting with his wife, and he was saying, "Oh, do you remember when this happened?" I was like, "No, I do not remember that at all."
It didn't happen that way. Yeah.
It's almost like I completely. He's like, "Oh, you don't remember? Like, I did this and you said this." I was like, "Absolutely not." And so I was like, am I I'm going to bring this up in therapy. Like, did I block that out? Like, what's
I mean, it happens to me a lot with my siblings too. I don't remember half the things they say happened.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, I used to love going camping." Like, we went one time.
Yeah.
Just like their lived experience of being in our home and their childhood is so different. But there's an age gap too. It was like 5 and 6 years. So
Sure.
I was always like, like the third parent a little bit.
Yeah.
So that could be a reason. But it's very funny. And nothing that he brought up was at all traumatic or bad or a terrible situation. He was just like funny, but he was trying to connect that funniness with me. And I was like, I don't remember what you're talking about. Like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
That happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? It happens to you too.
Yeah, but I just figured I blocked it out.
How do you balance the pressures of being a mom, a content creator, wife, navigating all that stress and anxiety? How do you balance it all?
I can't say that I do it well. Do I get things done? 100%. I also recently got diagnosed with ADHD.
What?
Us too.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I mean, I knew this about me, but I just never actually went in and got an official diagnosis until this year.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite freeing getting diagnosed, because I'm like, okay, so I am not that strange. This is how my brain works. This is my brain. Like, I'm not to blame about the things I do or the 50 unfinished projects that I have around my house. Mm-hmm. So how do I handle all of that together? I say I struggle a lot with it because the perfectionist piece in me is like, I need to do everything so well. Or I can't do it at all.
But that's going to be difficult too, because you're posting online. And you're posting for brands, you're creating content, and you're a perfectionist. Yeah. So you want to do everything to the utmost degree.
Yeah. And then what happens is
hard.
Like it ends up like I stress about it so much and I tinker, and then finally I'm just like, whatever, it's done, send, submit, post. Like, and then I'm not happy with it.
Yeah. But would you ever be happy with it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing that I'm trying very hard to do, is that like just to have myself say, this is fine.
Yeah.
Like, this is good. Send it off.
So do you think that it is tricky? Do you think that ADHD voice in your head of overthinking and telling you you're wrong or you need to be better or all of those things, that voice in your head that's constantly talking to you, that's affected your confidence through the years, do you think?
100%, because I think that like the negative self-talk has been there for me since I was a kid. And a lot of it's always like that reminder of like, okay, remember, like someone's going to judge you, like, you know, like your parents are watching, and then you don't want to do something embarrassing to embarrass the family. And then, oh my God, like, you know, whatever it is, it's always like, okay, there's always like a negative little voice that really makes me pause and like, yeah, should I do this? I don't know. Like, there's been so many things that have come up in both careers where people ask, oh, like, can you coach me on this? Or can you do whatever? And I'm like, me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Or like, I remember when I was a pharmacist, someone asked, can I be your, like, or can I be their preceptor? And I'm like, me? Okay. But then like my friend's like, you just won an award for like prescribing. Like, you're a good pharmacist. I'm like, okay. But like, I can't say that to myself, you know?
So, but then how do we teach our kids to not have that negative self-talk that will affect their...
I think it starts with like us as parents being their positive voice, telling them, you're doing great. I was like, wow, you, like, I always say to the girls, like, you know what, like, you just did a really nice thing for somebody. Like, that's awesome. Or look at, Mia is so creative and artistic with her hands, and she's always drawing and painting or sculpting. And I'm always like, you made that. Like, I don't know. I can't make that. I was like, that is freaking awesome. Good for you. And you can see that she's just like glowing with every compliment. And then I realized in therapy that communication wasn't with my parents and I or anyone when I was growing up, because I was just kind of alone, you know, just going through the motions, and I didn't have a lot of positive speak.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, so I don't think I learned how to speak to myself positively. To show up in that way for myself. And I'm hoping that, you know, I mean, they're 9 and 6. I mean, we have many years to go here, but like, let's just see how much we can build our kids up by saying, you're so funny. Oh my God, that cartwheel was amazing. I was like, I can't believe you learned to do a cartwheel in 3 days. Like, just to like really pump them up when they're doing something, because then if they do something bad, which they do, or they don't do it well enough and they get upset, I'm like, you know what? It's okay to be upset. But just think about all the awesome things that you just did this week. You know, like, or I'm sorry you can't go here, but look what you did.
Well,
you know?
it's my favorite part about you is the support and the positivity and that you pump people up. And so I can just imagine that your kids will shine with you doing that with them, you know, and you getting in their heads that they're good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
But I will say it's a challenge to remind myself to do that because it doesn't come natural to me.
No, it wasn't modeled behavior.
No. So, and I am not here saying I do this all like I'm the perfect little parent, because there's moments where I'm like, Jan, can you please take them to the mall?
Yeah.
You know?
Get them out of my face.
Like, just eat your supper.
Yeah, that's right.
Too, and something I try to do a little bit is normalize feelings. I spent a lot of my childhood feeling like embarrassed about how I felt and and ashamed or so that's something I try to do a lot with Carrie, to be like, that's a really normal feeling that you're feeling, and you know that happens a lot and blah blah blah, because that's just not messaging that I got. So I always felt like there was something wrong with me, the way that I was feeling, the way that I was thinking. So that is something I really try to pick out for him, so that he knows that what he's feeling is a normal feeling and there's nothing wrong with it. Because I think a lot of us in this generation carry around a lot of shame.
There's 100%. A lot of shame.
So much shame.
Yeah, a lot of shame.
So,
yeah, we got to change that for the kids. We really do. And, you know, we got a couple of ADHD brains here that know the yucky feelings that are in there. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
The executive,
to deal with.
like, that dysfunction that has, like, that paralyzing. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to do this, but I don't have time to do it 100% the way I want to do it,
so
I can't do it.
Do it.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah,
and then you end up having like so much undone things, and then it rolls into this anxiety of like, oh my God, I have so much things I didn't finish.
Yeah, and then you feel so bad,
and then you get depressed about it.
Yeah,
it's like this weird cycle.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
and then you get medicated, and you're like, this is
No, when I went on medication, I swear it took 2 weeks, and then I was like, wow, this is how Jan's brain works.
Were you ticked off when you went on medication and your brain went normal? Were you mad?
I wasn't mad. I think I was like super just fascinated that like the normal humans, this is like they can just think about one thing and do it. Like
right
then and right there. There's no like blurry, oh, but what if? What if this? What if that? And that's Jan. So Jan is like the opposite of me brain-wise. And so I feel like when I went on medication, I was like, whoa, this is why he literally can't multitask. Or not that he can't. He doesn't need to.
Yeah. He can just go from A to B.
Yeah.
Or for me to get to A to B, there's a whole alphabet.
Yeah.
In there of all the other things.
It's a journey to get to A to B.
Yeah. But when I started meds, I was a little bit annoyed.
You were resentful.
I was resentful. I was looking back. I was thinking, how many bad decisions have I made through my life because I couldn't get from A to B?
Yeah.
How much easier?
But how many good decisions did you make because you took
a lot
some
of good
detours?
decisions for some of those detours too. You're right. Yeah.
Got to think of it that way.
I know.
There's nothing you can do right now.
My son said to me, Mom, we're not looking back. We're just looking forward. Like from this, and I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. But the ADHD brain and imposter syndrome is an interesting thing.
The neurodivergent humans are the ones that start podcasts.
Right? We're a little bit neurospicy.
We're spicy. That's right. We try things. We may fail, but most of the time we don't.
No.
And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. You're right.
That is true.
Yeah. Look at us.
Look at us.
High five.
High five,
girls. Yeah. Okay. Let's.
Did I take them? Oh, you got them.
Oh God, what's that? This was not in the.
This is the magic of the end of our podcast.
Okay.
We take 5 questions. It's the speed round.
Speed round.
Alex sings it. And we'll ask 5.
What was that again?
I know. It's ridiculous. I don't even know why it started.
It became
but
a thing, and now it's our thing.
Yeah. I don't
we'll
sing
ask-
it well.
No. We'll ask 5 questions. Try to answer them in one word. What's the most interesting place you've ever been to?
Singapore.
Ooh. If you could have an unlimited supply of one thing, what would it be?
Fried chicken.
Ooh, good.
Fried chicken.
I don't know where that came from.
I know, but I support it.
What's your favorite book or movie of all time?
A Time to Kill is my favorite movie.
Oh, that is such a good one.
Movie.
Good book, too.
Never read the book. Name the first word that comes to your mind.
Poop.
I thought she was going to say fuck. What's the most challenging thing you've ever accomplished?
I think motherhood. I don't think I have accomplished it yet.
Yeah.
And by the way, I said poop because Aria is in this phase where she's like, everything has to be poop shaped. Candy,
Yeah.
songs,
Yeah, I remember it well.
all the things poop. And then I was just talking to somebody about this earlier, so that's why my ADHD brain's like holding on to them. That's why I said poop. Okay, guys.
Holding
Yeah,
on
no.
to poop. This whole episode will be about poop. No. Thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being my friend, and thank you for being my new friend.
Yes,
New friend.
exactly.
Yeah, it's lovely having you on. I've wanted to have you on for a while. And I'm glad that you finally said yes, that you were able to
Our
come join
schedules
us.
finally
Are
matched.
finally
Yeah,
matched,
it's been
right?
so awesome to talk to you a little bit. I mean, I feel like I know you kind of, I'm sure everyone says that to you because you have such a big online personality,
Yeah.
but it is nice to actually meet you.
Yeah, thank
Speak with you.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you at the next event.
Yes.
And keep being you.
Thank
keep
you.
being awesome.
I'll see you in Y-Town.
See you at the Red Night.
At the Red Night. Oh, now I want to go to the Red Night.
No, you do
don't.
not.
You do not.
That's an immediate no.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Imposter Sisters. Please remember, we're not doctors or mental health experts. If you're looking for mental health guidance, please see our show notes for local resources. Until next time, keep your head high, and we will see you next Tuesday.